Hello and good evening to all of you. Let's discuss one of the chapter given in the 10th class NCRT that is based upon the federalism. Federalism. How to actually understand this federalism and is India a federal country or not? By the way, any idea the word federalism has been mentioned in the Indian Constitution how many times? The options are one.
Types.
How many times? The options are 1, 2, 3, none of these.
None of these.
More than 3. More than 3.
None of these.
Yes. Actually, the word federalism has not been mentioned anywhere in the Indian Constitution. But whatever the idea of federalism is, that principle or that idea is very much visible in the Indian Constitution. So we will try to understand what is this federalism. But before that, if I ask, there are some cases. Let's assume the government of India wants to perform a nuclear test in Pokhran. And Pokhran, as we know, it is located in Rajasthan. The Rajasthan government is not agree with the central government in connection to this nuclear test. So what will happen in these circumstances? Will the central government be able to perform or have the nuclear test, or because the state belongs to Rajasthan or to the state government, will the state government will be having the power to tell to the center that look, this is our territory and whatever we want, those things will be executed. This is the first condition. The second condition is not the condition. The second situation is there is a state called Sikkim, and let's assume Sikkim wants to include some of the topics in their school book, in its school book. Some of the syllabus Sikkim wants to change, or something related to education is being added by the Sikkim, but the central government is not agree, or central government is saying that no, you cannot add this. So what will happen in this situation? Now the third situation is related to the Naxalism. Naxalism. The states like Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, they are facing this problem of Naxalism, and what they did, the respective state government is designed to policy to tackle or to fight this Naxalism. But the government of India is interfering and saying that this policy is not appropriate. You please change this. In this manner, we can tackle this Naxalism problem in a much better sense. So all these situations are there, and we will understand the significance of federalism in context to these situations. Because look, there are so many countries where this federalism does not work. The central government is everything. That is the my Bob, you can say. And in these kinds of situations where the central government is everything, and these state governments, they are the subordinate, or they are working under the shadow of the central government. Whatever central government wants, only those things will be executed. They hardly have any role except the existence of the states. In these kinds of circumstances, we can use the term called unitary. So in unitary government, what happens? The power is focused here. It is accumulated in the center only. And these states, they hardly enjoy any kind of power. That is called, unitary in nature. But as against this unitary, the situation in India is somewhat different. Let me give you one very famous example related to US democracy or the constitution of USA. In context to USA, it is said that the USA is the destructible union of indestructible states. Destructible union of indestructible states, whereas in case of India, it is just opposite. India is an example of the destructible states and indestructible union. So India is the indestructible union and destructible states, whereas USA is destructible union and indestructible state. Why it is so? Because if you see the historical context of USA, so the central government in USA was the consensus of the outcome of the state governments. In USA, initially states existed, and they thought that why should we not form one center which could take over the whole USA. And these centers, they came together and they gave the birth to the central government in USA. As against to this situation in India, the center is more powerful, and center can never be removed, or it can never be eradicated, it can never be distracted. The states can be distracted, and we know the states are formed and the states are also sometimes merged. So in India, the central, this union is more powerful than the states comparatively, whereas in USA the states are more powerful in comparison to the union. But in federalism, what happens? The word I used, the unitary. In unitary, the whole power is focused in the center only. It happens in unitary. But in federalism, what happens? That the power is within the center, but some of the power is also shared among these states. And in any truly federalistic country, these states almost have the equal power as the center has. So whichever country will be more closer to the true picture of federalism, where there is no disbalance between the power of the center and the states. That's why in context to Indian democracy or Indian constitution, different legal luminaries, they have different opinions. Some say that no, the Indian constitution is unitary in nature. Why? Because during the emergency it becomes unitary. Otherwise, the states have enough space. So the simplest meaning of federalism is that where the center gives powers to the state, or you can say the constitution of that country distributes the power between the center and the states, so that both could work in an equilibrium position. And why it is important? Because in my previous lecture I discussed two cases. The one belonged to the Belgium and the other one was Sri Lanka. In Belgium they shared the power. That's why there was no any killing happened. But in Sri Lanka, what happened? The massacre and so many people died. The Act of 1956, which favored only to the Sinhalese people, they were only being provided jobs in the universities and in other government sectors. So in the case of Sri Lanka, what happened? The idea of federalism never existed, because the center whatever wanted, forcefully those things were executed. And because of this kind of non-federalistic character of Sri Lanka went such a deadly disaster. So this federalism, basically the division of the power between the center and the states. Wherever this division of power will be the best or very much to the equal position, that country will be reflecting the best form of the federalism. Now let's come in these three issues. Actually, the Constitution of India has divided the power in some ways. For instance, there is the 7th schedule, which has the state list, the central list, and the concurrent list. So in central list, those subjects are mentioned in which the central government has the authority to frame the laws. And in the state related subjects are given there. And in the concurrent list, both the center as well as the state have the right to legislate the law. There is one more a list that is called residuary, which is not given in any of the list. For instance, let's take the example of after the Rajiv Gandhi or during his government, the advancement of the computer. So if anything is related to that, which is not given in any of the list, as when the constitution was framed, at that time, this never existed. So what will happen to any law which is related to this computer or the software? Because it is not given any of the list. So in these circumstances, the state has the right and the center has the right. But when both of them will come to fight with each other, then the law of the central government will prevail over the state government. I mean, if there is any conflict between the law of the center and the state, then the law framed by the central government will prevail. So these are the three lists, and because of these three lists, we can be very sure that India is a federal nation. I mean, don't go in the emergency situation, that is an exception. So India is a federal nation because the Constitution of India has designed the power in a very beautiful manner. So on this basis, although the word federalism has not been used, as I have told in the starting of my lecture, India is a federal country. Now let's discuss about this Pokhran issue. So Pokhran issue, it is related, the nuclear is the matter of the central list, or this nuclear program. It is the subject which comes under the central list. So in this because it is the matter, it is the subject of the central list, therefore Rajasthan government does not have any kind of right to tell to the central government that, look, this is my territory and you cannot perform this nuclear test anymore. So if this kind of question is being raised, then the government of Rajasthan will be asked to please go through with the constitution, and this particular list you will see the laws only central government can form in relation to the nuclear policy of India. The second condition is related to the Sikkim. Sikkim wants to amend its textbooks, school books, because this matter is given in the state list. That's why the central government suggestion will not work. In fact, the Sikkim can say that I am not going to accept any suggestions given by you, because this comes under my authority. The Constitution of India has given me the power to frame the laws based on this matter. So you please better have your suggestion with yourself only. You don't teach me what should I add and what should I not. The third is the Naxalism. Look, in Naxalism, people sometimes get confused that, oh yeah, Naxalism, it is a very serious matter and it should be the responsibility of the central government to take care of it. But this Naxalism is also the state's duty. Therefore, again, the interference of the central government will not be accepted. The central government is saying, no, please have this kind of policy. The state will simply deny that, look, this is my responsibility. In whatever manner I would like to tackle this issue, I am free to do this because the Constitution of India has given me this power. And this structure, which is based upon this federalism, the central government or the Parliament of India, they cannot amend the Constitution which affects the federal character of the country. And if any kind of change is being brought, by the way, look, Supreme Court and the High Courts are also there, so they themselves will take care whether, because this federalism has been accepted as the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. So if anything is being done and that is not legitimate, then the Supreme Court and the High Court, they themselves will take care of this problem. If any change is required, then the change can only happen with the constitutional amendment, and that constitutional amendment which requires the consent of more than 50% states of India. Because this nature of federalism which is being changed, it will affect the interest of the state governments as well. That's why their consensus is very, very important. So my concern is that this character of federalism is not easily amendable. It is not easily amendable. So in this sense, we can understand what actually this federalism is. The federalism of our country has gone through many more challenges, and the federalism has not come in a better shape in our country because it is given in the Constitution. No, it has come in its a good possible form because the way we have executed it and the way the people of this country, they understand this concept of federalism. This is a development which keeps on happening. It is like democracy. India is also a democracy and USA is also a democracy. But I think even in democracy, which is more democratic means the principles of democracy, where they are executed in their best possible manner. So in that context, I think India needs to cover a lot of distance. So the first problem which India faced in context to the federalism, that was related to the language. Language. In India, there are 1300 languages according to the census 2011. And out of these 300, around I think 200 or 300 languages are quite important one. For instance, the Hindi is there. So within Hindi, what will happen that the Bundelkhandi, Bhojpuri, I think Magahi or these kinds of languages, these languages are included within the Hindi only. So when you divide these 1300 languages in such a manner, then you would see that 2 to 300 languages are there. And out of these 200 languages, 22 languages are included within the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So you can understand, means these are called the scheduled languages because these are included within the schedule. Why I am discussing about the language with respect to federalism? Because there was a time when we were very afraid with this language problem. Why? Because every state, the kind of diversity India has, I don't think any other country on this planet Earth has. Even then, we are highly united. We may be having some problem among ourselves, but when the match of India-Pakistan happens, we forget every kind of differentiation, discrimination, and we get united. As it is being witnessed today, the Australia almost, I think, will be winning this World Cup as long as any miracle is not happening. So this is going to be a historical lecture, at least from my side, because we may forget this federalism, but we can never forget this particular day when the world will be witnessing a new history. So this language was accepted a very dangerous phenomena once upon a time. Because of this diversification, we assumed that, my God, now India will not remain united anymore because Andhra is asking for its own separate state, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Marathi people, Kerala, Malayalam in Northeast. So a sort of balkanization problem was realized once upon a time. However, some of these states, those were formed, they were not based upon the language. For instance, you can take the example of Uttarakhand. It was not based upon the language. It was the outcome of the cultural and other perspective. You can also take the example of Jharkhand, which used to be the part of Bihar once upon a time. It was not the outcome of the language problem. Nagaland, so on and so forth. So my concern is this, that this federalism started facing heat and problem because of this language problem. But somehow our policymakers and the people of this country, they resolved this issue, and this language problem, in fact, instead of being a weakness, it became our strength. And today we have so many languages, but there is no any problem which tells about the disintegration of India. So language was one of the threat, you can say, in context to the federalism, but it was very easily managed by our policymakers. Yes, we lost some of the people in the protest of this, for instance, one person, his name is Pottabi Sri Ramalu. Was he from Andhra? Yeah, so he lost his life. This federalism faced this language challenge, but somehow we managed this, and today with a great amount of confidence we can say that federalism in India is reflecting one of the best possible form. There was a time when the use of the article or this president rule, it is given under the article 356. So this article was being used a lot. So when you are using this article, it means you are undermining the power of the state governments. You are not giving them proper space. And in the cases like Bombay, Supreme Court of India, a category told that using this article is somewhere compromising the concept of federalism in India. So, but what happened? In due course of time, we started realizing that the frequency of using this article kept on decreasing. If you compare the use of Article 356 today in comparison to the situation 15 or 20 years back, you will realize the difference. There was a time when there was no any concept of coalition government, at least until 1990. So when the coalition government was not there in the central and in the states, only one government was ruling across the country. So when only one government is ruling, it means the regional parties are not getting enough space. So when you compare the federalism of that time in context to the present time, you can reach to a conclusion that that time the federalism was in its infancy stage. But a time came when, no any government could form, was in a situation to form the government by oneself. It has to take the assistance of the other parties. So taking the assistance, it can be evaluated with two perspectives, that it is not any strong government, but if you see through the other side of the prism, you will get to know that the other parties are also being the part of this government which is significant to run this country. So in context to the federalism, the more people are coming to share the power, the more best possible form of federalism will be reflected. So this coalition government, the use of Article 356, this language problem, they all were resolved in due course of time, and in present we are still in the process to reach very close to the best possible form of federalism. So these were some of the things related to this federalism, what actually this federalism is, and how the powers are shared. The last thing which I would like to tell, after that I will wind up my class, that is the decentralization of the power. Decentralization of the power. And this decentralization of the power you can relate with the formation of the local governments, the Gram Sabha and these municipalities in the urban areas. So the decentralization of power means when the central government and the state government is giving their share of power to the Gram Sabha or these municipalities. Because these Gram Sabha and the municipalities, they are the local government and they know locally what is the actual requirement of this particular village. How we can resolve this problem, as they have been living since time immemorial. So we developed this idea, and this idea also is making the concept of federalism even more stronger. So these local governments, in the decentralization of the power, where the central government and the state government is giving their share of power to, or are being given the responsibilities. But some problems are also there. For instance, some of the states haven't given the power to the local governments, the kind of power they really deserve. So the consideration is going on, and I think, this is a journey which never ends. We only can do our best to reach to the maximum close distance, because this is a very simple philosophy of journey, that journey never gets completed. So this was as far as this class 10th polity book was concerned, the chapter 2nd, Federalism. We will be discussing some other matters related to the Constitution of India in our coming classes. Namaskar.